Hi Pankaj, how are you? Well, you are muted.
Hi, I'm doing fine. How about you?
Oh no, I was just I was having a dual presence in two meetings, so I was talking to the other finished, and that's why.
Okay.
So
Well, we
now
both
we.
belong to cities with mega growth of the COVID. So I guess, these are very, very strange times.
No, thanks for joining. I think it will be wonderful to listen to you. Okay, and thanks for the book, of
Yeah,
course.
thanks. Yes, right. No, it's good. Yeah. 2 years of sabbatical. Hopefully,
Yeah.
well, spent purposefully. Hopefully, it will also help some others.
No. I think you collected a lot of this data and others, which is very useful. I think that's a very nice thing.
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely.
Right.
So are we going ahead with this or?
I suppose Manjunath
Manjunath, where is Manjunath? Has he joined?
And what's his name? Dr. Professor Sain.
I think Manjunath is handling it. So
Manjunath is handling it.
Shall we?
I'll call Manjunath. I'll call him.
Okay, good. Professor Phatak, how are you? Sorry, you said yes, but that time I was talking to the other meeting. So
I understand. I was doing the same thing, but fortunately I had it in a sequence. So I finished the earlier meeting at 5.
No, we had a whole day. I think we had this several selection committee. I think today my day ends at 9:30 with in the US STF meeting.
Subhashish, I tell you that I was never so busy in 50 years I spent with the institute. Only in the recent 1 year, I have become far more busier than earlier.
Yeah. Should we tell this information to others that you are not busy enough during your tenure here?
थोड़ा pension reduction कर दीजिए इनका. He hasn't earned his full pension.
I think Phatak is forgetting his 1 a.m. meeting with students and meeting in car rides to the airport and so on.
Yeah. Phatak Saab has been always a dynamo.
Yeah. So
dynamo of energy. I mean, that's something all of us can learn from. I mean, he's always energetic and positive.
Yeah. And always with the positive energy. Nowadays, energy has two things, negative energy and positive energy. When we were students, the energy was always considered a positive variable, non-negative variable rather.
No. Absolutely.
Okay, so now it can take negative also, looks like.
Okay. Yeah.
Falguni, what is happening? Where is Professor Manjunath?
I just talked to him. He thought it was 5:30 and he's joining right now.
Okay.
Earlier, he had said 5:30. Then I looked at the message. The message says 5:50. But he told me earlier 5:30.
He's joining in 2 minutes, sir.
Okay.
So historically, I don't know why, because see, 5 o'clock is normally when you have the, some of the classes end. So some 10 minutes for people to come to the, whatever the seminar hall. Right. And 5:15 is normally the institute lecture is around 5:15.
Acha, okay.
So it has been, so that's why I think the committee set it up at like this, but Manjunath probably runs a different clock.
Is that my friend Somnath?
But the clock is haywire these days anyway. That is true.
I can see Somnath Biswas. Whether it's the same Somnath Biswas.
It is. I said Somnath, in case you're interested. He said he'll join. So my good old friend, long.
Yeah. The Phatak Saab.
All right.
Phatak Saab, best regards, and Pankaj. Nice to see you.
And you have a good photo from Goa with a lot of sunlight one can see.
Yeah.
This is Probably the last formal, I think, institute lecture before our semester exam starts. Probably.
Oh yeah, when is your semester? Is your semester going in time or slightly late?
Yeah. We are keeping the semester timing for those are the ongoing batches. First year is of course different because they joined late.
Right.
So.
Oh, but there's no spillover from the previous semester.
Should I send it again?
So we are absolutely on time.
Okay. In Delhi, I think, for example, there was a little spillover.
No.
But
see, that is what we are following. No.
Can I tell Tejasvi to call you?
I'm on.
Okay, so Professor Manjunath has come now.
Okay, sorry. Wasn't it 5:25?
No. It's 5:15 always. All institutes. This
okay,
thing.
my apologies. I somehow lost track of time. I was doing some other things.
Do you want to start? Yeah.
Should we start or should we wait for another couple of minutes for others to join?
No. I think they have. Otherwise you may end up losing some. Okay, please.
Sorry, Pankaj. I
that's okay. We were having a chat. You please go ahead. We were chatting with each other.
Okay. Okay. Maybe I'll begin with the introduction. So firstly, apologies for the delay. I sort of lost track of time. It's a pleasure to have with us Professor Pankaj Jalote, who is probably now better known as the founding director of IIIT Delhi, which he started in 2008 and was director of the place till 2018. But he has been known to us for a variety of other reasons for much before that. He got his PhD from Illinois after a BTech from IIT Kanpur in 1980, and he taught at University of Maryland. He came back after a stint at Maryland to IIT Kanpur. Then he was a VP at Infosys for about 2 years, and then from Kanpur he moved to IIT Delhi as the Microsoft Research Chair there. And I think from Delhi he moved to start IIIT Delhi in 2008. Pankaj has been interested in starting institutions and the education landscape, especially the IT education landscape and computer science education landscape in India for a long time. He's the author of a blog and has been a regular contributor to many op-eds in various popular journals. My first interaction with Pankaj was when I was a faculty member at IIT Kanpur, and as part of the faculty forum, he conducted a survey of the efficacy of the various administrative officials, and the results of that survey were distributed to us by slipping it under our office doors. What it contained, etc., is between me and Pankaj for the time being, I guess. But that is something he's going to talk. He's essentially going to talk about a part of the recent book that he has written called "Building Research Universities in India." It's an amazing book which is based which a significant amount of it comes out of data and personal experience, and it's really reads very, very well compared to many other books, a few other books that I'm sort of familiar with a similar theme. Pankaj, all yours.
Okay, great. So Manjunath, thanks for arranging it. Subhashish, thanks for agreeing to make it.
Yeah, just Pankaj, 1 minute. I think they are asking whether they can record your thing, so we need your contact.
Right now, I am recording.
Okay, so please do. Okay, then go ahead.
Just one second, Pankaj. I have to start the recording, and then you can. You have to give permission to record.
Yes, I'm giving permission to record.
No, I think you have to do something.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe you can put a chat that I permit, okay, or something.
Whoever is the host,
I said record, it said give permission to record. Please ask the host to give you permission to record.
I'm not sure who the host is.
Who is the host for
admin team?
Falguni, who is the
host? Okay. Is Falguni?
Who is the host? Manju sir is the host.
Who is the host? Okay, I'm not called the host here. I'm logged in as myself, but I'm not called the host.
Yeah, interestingly, no one is called the host.
No, there's some people before when I joined.
So is there a host key?
There should be a host somewhere.
Host key that I could use?
Claim, okay, so I can claim host. So why not somebody, maybe Manjunath, you claim host.
Yeah, I'm claiming the host, but I need a key. I don't know what the key is.
Oh, host key. Oh, there is a key. Okay, let's not worry about it then. I think let's, instead of delaying.
Yeah, if you can, meanwhile, do it. Otherwise, so permission is there. You get,
Okay, yeah, I'll locate it and see if I have access to some key somewhere. Otherwise, Pankaj, just go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in any case, great to be here. So those of you joining, thanks for taking time to increase your screen time in these COVID days when we are stuck in our homes and tied to the screen. So I'm going to share the screen and I have a presentation which we will use. And presentation. Okay, I hope that becomes visible. And then slideshow. Okay. So I take it that this is visible to all. All right. So this is what the agenda is. So just 3 things I want to talk about. Research universities, a couple of minutes just to set the context. It's important to have that context. Research universities in India and the global context. Again, we must get research as a global thing. We must understand that. So 5-7 minutes on that. And then the main theme, which is about some aspects of building research universities, right? So let me also start my timer. So I hope to finish this in about 30 minutes so we can discuss. So there are 3 missions of a university, and the university we're defining as any organization empowered to give degrees. So MIT is a university, IIT is a university, IIIT is a university. So education, there are 3 missions of any university. So first is, of course, the education. All aspects from designing the program to courses to teaching to assessment to grading. This was the original and the primary and the first mission. It is called the first mission of universities. And research, which is about new knowledge creation, this got added to the university mission in the Humboldt model 19th century. And then, of course, as we know, US took it to great heights. And over time, the key thing is it was found that the second mission is actually synergistic with the first mission, right? And then the third mission is really direct contribution to society through innovation, entrepreneurship, and outreach. So this is a more recent edition. If you search for third mission, you'll find it. And the expectations of the government and the society from universities, which are supported by the society, in the third mission are also increasing. Okay? So there are 3 missions. So a research university is one which engages in all 3. So all universities engage in all 3 missions. The degree of involvement changes from a research intensive university to teaching intensive, right? So that's the main difference. Research universities are those that are research intensive, which means that the research mission dominates, and the other 2 leverage the research mission. So research is the primary focus. The faculty effort goes mostly in research. That's a characteristic, we all know. Teaching remains an important mission, we all know that. And it is connected to research. So it's different than teaching, than colleges, which have a different kind of teaching. The third mission, innovation, is also research driven. So it's not an add-on. It should be aligned to our research mission. So more deep technology, deep tech startup rather than a business startup, for example. Okay. So that's what research university is. Now let's just spend just a couple of minutes. Why should we invest in research? The question posed is in a different way. Research is global. The knowledge is global. It's available to us publicly. It's public domain. So why invest in research? Why not simply use the knowledge created by Europe, by US, by Japan, etc., and use it? Okay, we must answer it because I know as a student, when I was a student, there was always doubt whether there is need for research in India. But now I think the answer is very, very clear. First of all, for innovation and development, these things rest on new knowledge now. There is no doubt about it. And there is a lot of tacit knowledge that comes with new knowledge, which is not transmitted through in patents or publication. So if you want to leverage new knowledge for innovation or development, you need to be doing it. Okay? And I just want to point out innovation, people mix innovation and research. Innovation is about value creation by using knowledge. Research is about creating new knowledge. You know, people often mix it up. So that's the driving force. In today's world, you cannot not have research. A partner in global science and technology, a country like India, we have to play a role in the science and technology fraternity in the world, have some respect, have some soft power. Strategic needs and self-reliance, we know that. India has faced that, we know that. And then addressing local problems. Nobody is going to address the problems of a very special country like India. It's not important for the developed world, so we need it. And there are so many other reasons. I'll just put down a few. But to sum it, strong research capabilities are absolutely essential for any aspiring nation. So there should be no doubt that research is absolutely needed, critical for our growth and so on. But now the follow-up question. Why research universities? Research gets done in three types of places. Research universities, research labs, and the private sector R&D. Right? These are three. There is some small other NGOs, etc., but these are the primary research centers. So why do we need research? Why not just have all research labs and ask private sector to do research? So first of all, the research universities form the core of this overall research ecosystem. Your research ecosystem doesn't have the main research manpower if research universities are not good. Because the manpower for all these three is being created by research universities. So that's just number one. Your research ecosystem sits on research universities. Let's clearly understand that. The second is the overall development of a higher education system itself, right? So NEP and has positioned rightfully so, as globally it has been viewed, the higher education system is a three-tier hierarchy. The research universities sit at top, then you have universities, then you have colleges. The research universities provide faculty for research universities, but they're supposed to provide faculty for the next level. The next level is supposed to provide for the next level. So essentially the entire higher education is getting driven by research universities. You forget this and everything weakens. In fact, that's the big challenge in India. We are not able to provide enough for the second tier and third tier. With the result, colleges are providing their own faculty. The worst kind, you have an inward loop, which is just not desirable. You should always have a downward loop, except downward pressure, except at the top, which will have a loop of its own. Okay, so you need for your higher education system. So both for your research ecosystem and the higher education system, strong research universities are essential. And then there are global cooperation in science, because universities can do it much better than anybody else. And if you want world-ranked universities, clearly research universities are the ones we are going to do. Okay, so research universities are essential. You cannot not have research universities. Okay, so we've already discussed that since I'm running little. So research universities are going to be a small portion of a higher education system, less than 10%. But without that, both research as well as higher education will suffer. So the new NEP envisages about 100 research universities in the start and about 300 in some 15, 20 years later. Okay. Now, how do you separate research universities from the rest? Right? I've given some idea, but you can actually use classification systems for separating the research universities. And I'm not going to get into it, but the Carnegie classification has been the oldest classification system, which also basically classifies as research universities, then other universities, then bachelor colleges. These are the three main ones. And their criteria for research universities is essentially PhD production. Okay. Then they divide research universities themselves into R1, R2, R3, but let's not get into it. But basically, classification scheme can help separate research universities from other universities. So the recent work in which I was also involved, we had done some study and we had done some analysis to adapt Carnegie classification to India. And we had put definition of research university for classification. 75% of the faculty should have PhD. And on an average, there should be one PhD scholar each faculty, one full-time PhD scholar each faculty, right? A reasonable criteria. Then we did further sub-classification. That's not of interest. We applied it to the 100 engineering and 100 top engineering institutions and universities in India. And basically what we came out with, we saw that by this definition, the number of research universities is about 68, which is reasonable. Actually, it's a pretty reasonable number. And most of us will agree. And the classification work of China, Korea, etc. have also listed about 50. There's a classification work in Japan also, but I couldn't find an English translation for that. Okay, so that's all I want to talk about research universities, and that it's not just a concept. You can put classification systems to separate the rest. Okay, so that's my first topic. The second, I just want to talk about the Indian education growth. So the left chart shows the growth of degree granting institutions, universities. So essentially it's two linear curves, one straight line here, and then another up to 2000 approximately, and then from 2000. So actually in about 25 years, we doubled from about 75 to 2000. At the rate of we were adding about 5 universities a year. From 2000 onwards, we've actually tripled from about 250 to about 750. And we've been adding about 35 universities a year, 6 times the rate of growth, right? This is on the right side is college. So essentially the growth of universities itself, largely 2/3 of our universities have been created in this century. So in any case, we did some analysis of the top 200 THE universities, THE rank, and the top 100 for engineering and universities in India, right? We looked at 3 factors: age, size, funding. There are so many other factors, but we didn't, database, we only did this. So here is a summary we got. Size. So the most important is size. So let me just look at the size. Size distribution, I think that's the one which really catches your eye. So these tables show the student strength and the faculty strength. The student strength in the THE, the global top 200, only 5 universities have less than 5,000 students. In our case, more than half of universities and half engineering colleges have less than 5,000. If you go to more than 10,000, 90% of the global universities have more than 10,000. In our case, it's only 23 or 7, about 30 of them out of 200. Completely reversed this distribution. Similarly, of course, in terms of faculty strength, less than 500 faculty. Of the global 200 top, only 12 had faculty size less than 500. And look at ours, 80 and 94 out of 100. Greater than 1,000, most of them, 65, 70% of them were greater than 1,000. In our case, just about 4. So if you just look at it, I'm not saying we have to emulate it, but this is worth keeping in mind that scale. I just want to mention the scale and research funding do matter, right? So that's size and funding, they do matter. Size matters immensely because larger faculty does more research, larger size of students create more impact, and therefore your image and so on, standing in society increases. Funding is of course critical for success, and top global universities are well funded. And I've done some comparison. Our case, actually, the average research funding in top 100 universities and engineering colleges is just 20 crores a year. Average per faculty in all of them is just 5 lakh a year. 20 crore a year, which is typically what a department possibly earns in a global university. Okay, so this was my context of our top 100 and top 100. Only out of that, about 70 are research universities as per our classification. But I just tried to compare it with the global this thing because there is aspiration. We all aspire to have some of our universities considered globally. Some of them are, of course. So this was my second point. And so the global context, how we do it. Now the third point, and we'll spend maybe 15, 20 minutes on just this aspect. So building research universities. So I put down these key characteristics. We'll discuss a few of them. There isn't time to discuss more, but we can, in discussion, we can have some more. So what are the key characteristics? We've defined it, you can classify it, you can compare it, but finally comes down to what can we say? What are the characteristics of it? So first of all, as we mentioned, the faculty effort goes mostly in research. Research is the primary focus when faculty thinks about what they're doing. Okay. And you'll see that so many other places we visit, that's not the case. People that, most of them teaching, maybe not even teaching. The faculty is hired and promoted for research primarily. Of course, it doesn't mean that you ignore this thing, but good quality is taken for granted, good quality teaching is taken for granted, and you evaluate the faculty for research. And the key thing here is that there are measures in place to prevent faculty complacency, because there's tenured faculty is tenured world over. You need to have ways to prevent faculty complacency. Research culture, we'll discuss that. If you don't have a research culture, of course, all of us talk about it in our discussions and so that what is our research culture. So that's clearly very important. We'll spend a slide on this. A substantial and high quality PhD program. Okay, everybody knows that, but not just volume. There are many universities in India where the volume is very large, but the quality is suspect. So we need a substantial and high quality PhD program. Okay, we'll discuss that a little bit. And then there are standard, these things. We need, of course, high active sponsored research program by industry funding agency. High quality education, which is also connected to research, is also a characteristic of a research universities. Academic freedom and autonomy, okay? And then we have research funded, driven innovation, well funded in terms of money, good infrastructure, responsive administration. I'm not going to discuss these last few, but the first few, let's spend one slide each, have a little discussion, and then we try to close it. These are the first 5, 6 in my mind are the ones that really make a research university. So let's talk about research culture. What is a culture? I mean, we can, from culture definition, you can define research culture. It's a set of beliefs, values, attitudes, practices, the customs that we have for supporting and promoting research, right? So what is the set of beliefs we as members of an university, what are the values we hold? What are our attitudes, practices? What are our customs for supporting and promoting research? Do we cherish every time a great research gets done? Do we talk research when we meet? Are our attitudes towards research supportive of research? Do we value research as much as we should? Etc. So these are all essentially define the research culture. Okay, so I think some aspects of research culture which are a little bit more tangible and which you actually can implement and can try to put it in a university. One is expectation of high quality research. Okay. A trend I'm seeing pretty much in the places that one sees in IITs, etc. But one small point that really drove home that at some point that to some degree we were able to do it in our institute when after many years of driving home the point, there's we put in some sort of expectations for PhD students and all that. And I remember some PhD students coming and saying, sir, should we put it in A-star conference and A-star journal, or should we? They had figured out what it is. They had started aspiring for A-star. I'm not saying A-star and all that is good, but the main thing is they were aspiring to publish their works in good quality venues. That is the first step. Of course, you want to go for outcome and impact later on. So expectation that you are expected to not just do some publication and do a thesis and get out. And similarly, of course, with faculty, it's not just publication, but high quality research. And the quality has to be defined. I'm just using good venues as one, but there is multiple aspects. Strong motivation of faculty and research scholars for research. Okay, research in a university is not a job. It cannot be a job. PhD is not another degree that you come and get out of. There has to be strong motivation for faculty to be faculty, to have to do research. If research is not a motivation, then you're going to have challenge. If it is teaching is a motivation, one should go to a teaching-oriented institution. Similarly for PhD students, right? So what is their personal motivation to do research? Okay, you have to, the culture encourages collaboration both internally and externally. You'll notice in many of our institutions, external collaboration is there somewhat, internal, not so much. Actively seeking research grants, but rewards for good research, peer recognition. Do we recognize, do we clap, do we give recognition to people who do good research, who are recognized, and reward them in some way or the other. It doesn't have to be always salary. There are various ways to reward them. And I want to point out good work ethics. There is a good paper by Shannon, very famous old paper, You and Your Research. Okay, he talks about why your own work ethic, in terms of how much effort you're putting and how sincere you are, is so important to be productive. And then, of course, research ethics, which is probably more so important for us in India, is that all phases of research. So this is all research culture. I put down some which are a little bit more tangible, which you can think of as to how can you actually try to inculcate it in institutions. Of course, all of us are trying as well. Faculty recruitment and management, right? So research performance, research potential and motivation for research must be assessed for recruitment. And most of the institutions, and my experience is largely with IITs, IITs, they always do at the recruitment time. There is never a doubt people are looking at research performance, research potential, very nice. Faculty promotion, on the other hand, must be rigorous with respect to research performance and impact as an important consideration. Okay. Now, this is where I think we need to think through our systems. And if you want to do that, if there is a research performance and research impact as an important consideration, then there ought to be regular review and feedback. Without feedback, we all know, many of you are control system people or know about it, every system degenerates without feedback. Okay, so this kind of regular review and feedback is an exercise globally done, rarely done in India. So regular assessment and feedback, in my view, is essential for a research university. Otherwise, I don't think you can develop the culture and various other things there. Mentoring and next year plans. So this is again, almost all older universities have various ways for mentoring young faculty, so they don't fall into bad traps. Okay. And of course, for that, you need good role models, good senior people to do it. In our case, and next year plans, so there are ways universities will have ways to sort of help you, establish next year plans and achieve them. So these can help a lot. Okay, formally, informally, semi-formally, there are various ways to organize these things, but they're not often done as far as my knowledge is. And the last point I want to just mention, preventing faculty complacency. This, in my view, was and is perhaps the bane of Indian academia. And many of the systems that I built in IIIT Delhi was with this basic assumption, with this basic observation that we do not have good controls in place to prevent faculty from becoming complacent. So there is many things one can do. So you need to build systems that will help faculty achieve their potential. And I always argue that is so much more important, not just for the system, but for the faculty themselves. These are very, very smart people we hire. And if 10, 15, 20 years later, they don't get a good answer of what have they achieved in their life, we are also doing them a disservice. So I think we need to build these things, not just for the system to be more productive as a research university, but for the person to be more productive. So reviews, international collaborations, mentoring, tenure system, rewards, recognition, all these can help. And in fact, all of these, I had a six-pronged strategy for doing it. These were all competent. Substantial and rigorous, so that's now the third, each one of the points that I'm discussing, one slide each, and in another 5-7 minutes, I'll end. Substantial and rigorous PhD program, right? So PhD program, of course, is the backbone of a research university. In fact, that is the one which separates it, a high quality, not just volume. It separates it from other universities. Why do we, when we get a candidate from a Georgia Tech or a MIT or a Berkeley, why do we get suddenly excited? Just because we know that the credibility and the quality of their PhD program is very good. Okay, or from IIT, in our case, the IIT Bombay, IIT Delhi, when you get PhD, when you get faculty candidates, you immediately take a close look at it. What is happening? In fact, in IIIT, we had a tier, we sort of called it tier 1, tier 2, and we would only look at PhDs from the top tier systems. Of course, most of the IITs were in there, not all, by the way. So it's a backbone. A rigorous PhD program with high expectations is the key here, not just a large PhD program. And I realized when I was doing studies for the book that globally now, in Australia, in UK, in US, there is now a move so PhD program is one thing that falls through the cracks because accreditation bodies don't look at it. No other real assessment really looks at it. So it becomes far more sort of internal driven. There's no external this thing. So I know in many countries, the PG deans, as they call them, or the graduate deans are getting together to look at PhD programs in particular. And there are new sort of things coming out as to what is the expectation of the PhD program? What is the program sort of what are the objectives that to develop what kind of research? So I put down a few, for example, that objective of a PhD program is to develop researchers who have wide knowledge about that area, have strong and demonstrated research skills, are well equipped. These are new things which people are adding, are well equipped with translational capabilities for a range of careers. World over, 20-30% of the people, PhDs, go for academic job. 50% in sort of social sciences kind of things. So you need to now build translational capability. And of course, PhD student graduate is a global researcher. So he should be able to, he or she should be able to work globally. So there's various things going on there. I think it is time for all of us to rethink our PhD program, get some external reviews, etc. So based on the objectives, you can define graduate attributes for PhD programs. We try to define them for undergraduates. I suppose all institutions are doing that, but rarely do people try to define for PhDs. But I've seen good exercise, and I think if you start thinking, it's a very good exercise too. High quality education. Now, education is a key mission for research universities. But I want to point out that education in a research institution plays a somewhat different role. It has a different purpose in the larger scheme of higher education. First of all, in a research university, the teaching research nexus must be leveraged. And it is leveraged by research in courses. So there we have courses in which some material may be coming out of latest research. The courses are updated with latest research. We may even have research in the courses, that is, we may give some research project. And we have research possibility for all students available. So all of us, IIT Bombay, will clearly resonate with this. So there is a teaching research nexus that's unique to teaching to research universities. But we may not realize, and we may not even want it, but research universities are the ones that provide leadership in program, curriculum, and course design. No, research universities didn't ask for it, but this is the role that has been imposed on them, has been given to them. Because all other universities, when they design their courses, they design their program, they design their curricula, where do they go? They first look at what IITs are doing. We look at what MITs are doing. So we all look at these other universities, top universities, to provide guidance. So we are just with our standing, have this role of providing leadership in education. New programs, innovative programs, new courses, innovative courses. I know in innovative courses, we are doing a good job. I'm not too sure how much we're doing in programs, for example. High quality learning experience. Research universities globally get the top talent. They train about 2-3%, 3-4-5% of the students. Same in India. So the top 4-5% of the students are coming to research universities to do their undergraduate degree. They deserve the best learning experience, and we need to provide it to these brightest of the students. Okay? So therefore, high quality education is an essential component of a research university. People think as if research university ought to be doing only research. It's completely wrong. Leadership in education is coming from research universities, as our experience also tells. So careful design with attributes, course design driven by learning outcomes, interdisciplinary education, taking leadership in that through minors, dual majors, what have you. Support for effective teaching and learning through training modules for teachers, feedback loops, proper loops for improving, rewarding teaching excellence. All those would be tools to make sure that there is high quality education in the research institution. Okay, and I have just 2-3 more and then I would be done. Governance autonomy. This is of course a topic that we all discuss greatly. But let's understand, research universities are very complex entities. 3 missions, and we are playing at the top of the game in all 3 missions. Not shoddy, chota-mota game at the bottom. We want to be a high quality education. Of course, we are doing high quality research, and we want to be in the innovation space, which is deep tech technology research led, hardest of the innovation needed. So they're very complex. Good governance is essential. And it ought to be understood that only governance by academicians can work. Nobody else understands, will have a clue of how research universities function. Okay? So some aspects of good governance in a public university is full accountability, full autonomy with accountability. There is no other route in my view. Because, as I said, it's just way too complex. There's faculty dynamics, there's student dynamics. How do you marry these 3 goals and yet come out ahead? There is global competition. You must have, a research university must have full autonomy to make its own decisions completely. At the same time, there has to be shared governance with faculty. That's a tradition, certainly from Europe, that borrowed and that still remains, that it's not a top-down management-driven institution. This is what separates it from a business organization where CEO calls the rules. No, that's not how it works. Academic freedom is a basic tenet. That is, people can do research on any topic they want, publish any research paper in proper journal as they want. And the quality of research matters, but not what the research was on. You can look at quality, the impact, but not what the research is on. So nothing should impact the faculty from working on whatever topic they want. In terms of teaching, there is a balance. You can't teach anything that you want, but there is. And there's one thing which is particularly true for India, and therefore I keep it whoever, the body that accepts any recommendation should be separate and completely distinct from the recommending body. IITs follow it, IIIT follow it, but a large section of our universities don't follow it. This is a complete conflict of interest and complete violation of good governance. NEP thankfully recommends all the good things. Strong and visionary leadership. I mean, you cannot do without it, right? You have to be, leader has to be good academician, doesn't have to be top academician. He or she ought to be able to attract top academicians, but he needs to be a good academician. Visionary, of course, you need to know where you're taking the university, otherwise the university doesn't go anywhere. You just sort of continue to exist. And you have to be able to work with diverse stakeholders, and you know, it's a very, very complex role. You have to be an able administrator and finance manager and all that. Okay? And I want to point out the leader selection must be with the university. It is a flaw to have the leader selected from outside the university, because whenever you select a leader by a body outside the university, the leader is answerable to that body. The leader has to be answerable to the university, to the board of the university, to the senate of the university, what have you. So the leader has to be selected by, should be. And again, NEP thankfully really promotes this. It's a great thing that, you know, NEP is saying, I don't know how much of it will get done, but that will be a great leap forward. Okay, I'm just, since I'm finished, active sponsored research program is sort of always there. We don't have to do it. I just end with this last slide. Creating research universities, large multidisciplinary, not something existing universities. So one is, of course, new greenfield research universities. We do a lot in India. We keep creating universities. It requires huge investment. I mean, you've seen, right? 250 to 750 in this century. But there are other approaches. The first approach is very expensive and very time consuming. So converting an existing narrowly focused university into a large multidisciplinary university. This is the approach that was followed in much of US, Europe, Singapore. Many of the places have done it. It's a well-established method that existing university, narrowly focused institutions will enlarge their scope and do it. So whether it's Georgia Tech in US or NTU in Singapore, you have many, many examples there. So for example, a few, not all, few IITs, few NITs can be expanded to become 1,000+ faculty, 20,000+ students with a wider scope, right? So there's an approach. This is at the national level. And I want to just talk about third one, which to me also became only when I started studying this subject, mergers of HEIs, the universities, labs for creating research universities. Now mergers, as it turns out, are actually quite frequent. In US, China apparently has done more than 400, Australia and Europe. So the Dawkins reforms in Australia in 87, they followed this. This was the key path. And many of you would know Australia in early 70s and 80s was not known to be a great place for universities and research. But look at it now. You know, so many of the universities they got expanded through these mergers. So whether it is QUT or RMIT and various other ones got created through this Dawkins reform. France is trying it more in this century. So they've merged 10+ institutions to what they say MIT, French MIT. But they're doing it in 8 cities, I believe. Okay, that's the information I have. Okay. In India, we've tried to break institutions. Right? We have many examples of take a bigger institution and separate out and make sub-portions of it as universities. I think we must try with merging and consolidating institutions, including R&D labs. Now that we're doing public sector banks and so on and so forth, we've sort of realized that even in public domain, scale is good, merging is good. Perhaps we ought to try. That's okay. So I'll just end it. Research is essential for a country like India. Research universities, if you take that, research universities are the core. You cannot have good research without good research universities. And you cannot have good higher education systems without good research universities. Okay. And there are pathways for these universities to move towards research. There are different pathways. Okay. And I just want to end with this: for research universities to thrive, we must have strong support for them, autonomy, funding, etc., etc. And we must have high expectations from them. And then hopefully things will happen. Okay, I'll just end with this. Anybody, if you're interested, any senior faculty from IIT Bombay, I'm happy to send a complimentary copy of the book should you be interested, right? Okay. So slightly more than the time I thought, but still 35 odd minutes. I'm stopping the sharing of it and we can.
Yeah, I think, Pankaj, you can keep the slides just in case people go back and forth.
We'll do that. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we can begin with some questions. Anybody has a question, please unmute yourself and ask. If you have raised your hand, I think if I see a raised hand, I will ask. Soumya, you're the first one to go.
Okay.
Yeah, unmute yourself and speak up.
Great, thanks, Manjunath.
And Soumya, it's really nice to see your face too. I've been seeing blank screens for too long now.
Yeah, just hold on. Just hold on. Yeah.
Facing withdraw. Yeah. I'm facing withdraw. Oh, come on. What are you? I have withdrawal.
Manjunath, I'm still the me. Okay. Professor Jalote, thanks for the book. I did not go through the whole of it, unfortunately, yet. It's pretty long.
Yeah.
Detailed. It's a very slow read, but whatever I have read is just too good. Great. That should be a sort of Bible in front of us. But I have a couple of conflicts over here, which I would like to point out. One of the things is that you have said that research has to be the primary focus and teaching, let's say, as secondary in some way. Go ahead. Unfortunately, or people perceive it that way in search of promotions or whatever. As a result, the teaching suffers, and as a result, the PhD student quality suffers. Now, there is also another flip side to it. In IITs, and in India for that matter, we have adopted almost UK model of PhD without the necessary checks and balances. Unfortunately, our PhD program is not heavily with courses like in the US and all. That leads to a situation where the students are, to me, at least the students are not very well prepared after, when they're coming out to engage in global, interdisciplinary and broad scale sort of. If you put the coursework in, then the research sort of suffers because they can only start research after a year and a half or whatever after they're coming in. Now, how do you think this sort of a contradiction or conflicts can be resolved? Because I am all for taking a year of courses, year and a half of courses, going for a very strict qualifier to understand. But then again, qualifier, so many people do not do so well that it leads us into a level of problem.
So quick this thing because so education, I think we have to be very clear, education is the first mission. High quality education is our responsibility. Now, the conflict because after all, we have only finite time. So how do you conflict? The conflict is resolved in research universities by reducing the education load. And so you'll see the top universities will have, for example, one course a semester, while you go to the next level, even in research universities, 2 courses a semester, and you go to teaching universities, there may be 3. So that's how you try to resolve the balance, not in the quality of teaching or the seriousness of teaching. And that is partly messaging and partly solving the real problem of faculty. The faculty has only 8-9 hours of day to work, right? So that's number 1. PhD program, as I said, that's something different. We have a course requirement. I know IIT Kanpur had course requirement, etc. I think it's time to all of us, all institutions, to really seriously take a relook at research at PhD program. Not just these things about course requirement versus what, but the research world is changing. What are we preparing our PhD students for? We ought to really be very clear. We are not they're not going to become just faculty. So we ought to start looking at multiple career pathways that they have and then prepare them for it suitably. If we apply ourselves, all of us are smart enough to come with solutions. I think the challenge is we are just not sitting down and having a PhD program review every 5 years as many universities do. Okay, I think so. I can see
Sudarshan, you can.
Sudarshan is there, Ashif is there, Deepti ji has a hand up.
Yeah, I think we'll go in the order in which they have raised. So Ashif, go first.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Fine. So my question is regarding
please.
Yes, face please.
I just bathed now, so I'm not in a good position to.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So the question is regarding the students who come from rural background. Sometimes they don't have enough information, or sometimes they don't even know that what is PhD or how PhD is done, and things like that. And in very rural places where poverty is very high, they don't even think about research. For them, where even a simple teaching job is a very nice career. So how to promote research in places where poverty is very high, and where this kind of research environment is not there, for example, or they don't even think about research. So,
So Ashif, first of all, let us not look down upon teaching careers. They're great. So if I would any day say, hey, look, you like teaching, be a good teacher and go to a good teaching place. I mean, there are some challenges in India because we don't have the second tier good places. But hey, look, lots of people across the world are very respected and contributing members of the society by teaching this thing. So the membership in the research universities, I mean, research universities are very few, therefore the faculty is also very few. So first I want to point out, not everyone has to become a research faculty in a research university, even if you want to do PhD. So teaching position. Number two, by the same token, so just 3 points. Number two, not everyone has to do PhD. You have to have the right motivation. Now, if people do not know about it, one will have to, I don't know enough about how to build sensitization and in knowledge programs for them. But the main thing is that somehow, and that portion I don't have experience with, you have to get the person that he is motivated for research for the right reasons. That's my basic take for this thing. So PhD student, you can make look at the background and everything else, but you must assess whether there is good motivation for doing it. Now, if there is a need to make the person more aware of it, I don't know what kind of bridge programs it is. So sorry, Okay.
Yeah, Deepti.
I hope that is.
Yeah, is Deepti still? Yeah, you can unmute and speak up, please.
Yes, thank you, Professor Jalote, for a very nice summaries and motivation and how should we move forward. So I am just picking one question which was from your last slide, that you will give your copies to senior faculty members. So
well, go ahead. Please send me email. Don't worry about it.
No. So that's okay. I'll still can email you and will fetch some copies from you. But my question was also very much related to this one. So even in more like all the leadership programs that are happening in India, like I don't recall their names, but they are mostly gathered towards senior faculty. I do not know what is exactly the definition of senior faculty members, but what I see is that faculty members who are just graduated to associate faculty and who are looking to careers for more than 20 years roughly, right? They should also be trained and be put up into some leadership programs, so that whatever they have learned in their initial years, their experience is much, I would say, new compared to senior faculty members. And probably senior faculty members definitely have very good experience. But then I think these mid-level people can also contribute a lot, and they should also be involved into such programs. So please, requesting your thoughts and comments on that.
So I'll tell you what, there's some advice I actually give to people who come. I've always said for the first 10, 15 years of an academic life, do not do anything but academics. You have to establish yourself as a good academician to be even a good leader. Nobody respects a person who sort of worked his or her way around and became a director or this thing. You respect a person because the person became a dean director, but also had substance in it. So first of all, I think academic being the kind of career that is, it lasts 30, 35 years. First 15 years ought to be, because it takes that much time to build an academic reputation. Right? So in my mind, the person is not a sort of senior person looking for leadership for the first 15 years, okay? Which is very different from what corporate guys say. They are looking for 30s and leaders because their goal is different, right? And also their lifespans are shorter. In our case, lifespans go to 65. So that's number one. But now the second point, after all, 15, 20 years is also that's not that you still would be in mid age group. And now that is where I think people have to find out who has inclination and interest. Inclination and capability. So in India, for a host of reasons, we seem to feel that we can only contribute and do things by being a dean or a director and so on. It seems like it, right? Everybody seems, we are far more position oriented than, for example, academicians, our peers in many places across the world. We seem to be, that's a societal thing. I'm not saying anything, all of us, right? So I'm not putting myself in any of them. But I think we need to realize who has the potential, and there are ways to do it in the sense, how well you did when you were just a department committee chair, how well you did something when you were the library, something convener, right? Each of these chota jobs that we give to junior faculty, etc., ought to be contributing, and we ought to be doing it, and then actually it filters up. Now, when I look back, I say, when I was in computer science in Kanpur, I remember not anything, but I was made a lab in charge and I did some initiative. I remember something beyond this thing. I was made admission in charge and we did something, I tried to do something. So I realized that I probably had a little knack from before, and I kept doing those little jobs reasonably well. So that's the path. You focus on academics, but keep doing your little jobs that you get for admin very well and hopefully your institute will recognize that, hey, look, you're doing a good job. And so then they will say, hey, look, let's make her the head, let's make her the dean, let's make her this, that, right? So that's the ideal world. One hopes it will work through. I think to some level it does work. Yeah. Most of the places. I was made head without me ever asking. Some of these people approach, hey, look, Pankaj, we are going to make you. That's, I'm just saying that. Yeah, please.
Yeah,
hi. Very interesting talk. I want to just focus on one part of what you talked about, which is, what is research, right? We all assume we understand what is research. But something which I see is that most students have no clue what is research. Even students who have, joined us for a master's program, even after a year, they're still trying to understand what is research. And this concept is much more abstract for somebody who's not even part of our system. When we say we should have research-oriented universities, why should the man on the street even care? Now, the way it is currently framed, unfortunately, is based on various rankings, QoS rankings, THE rankings, and so on. And the whole focus is on that. We want to create a few institutions which are amazing in the world. But, that essentially will create our usual, islands of prosperity amongst an ocean of poverty, right? I mean, this is a very common situation in India. So I feel that if India is really to progress, we need these islands, but these islands cannot be in an ocean of poverty. So a much broader range of people needs to understand, what is the point of research? And if the point of research is just publishing in the top A-star conference, it's not going to happen in the next part. And as long as research is pitched as publication in certain conferences, you end up with second layer publishing in meaningless venues, doing pointless work. And at some point, people actively will start disrespecting research because what they see as research is actually nonsense. So I think we need to have a broader idea of how to tell people what is research, what is useful. This may not be exactly the same for each area, but I think some push in this direction is needed so that people appreciate it. And that is the sort of research which might get actually valued in the second tier institution. Maybe not publishing here, but solving some real life problem. So I think this is very important for the future in India, of research in India.
So that's a great point. But I think there is, first of all, a technical definition of research is new knowledge creation, which is useful, right? So but I see your point. It's about how do you, so I don't want to confuse innovation engineering with research. That's also important, but that's not research. Okay, so those are also useful. Now, yes, absolutely. Your point as to, first of all, why research is important needs to be understood. Second, needs to be articulated and understood by a large section of people, right? So as I said, the two main reasons: if you don't do your innovation, and that system will suffer. If you don't do, your higher education system will suffer, which we've already seen, which we have seen, right? Not having, right? Now, the question about, I think the main question you asked, is research finally just new knowledge, just about paper publishing, right? I think it may boil down to a part of it. You see, so that is where I think there's one in this science, technology, innovation policy. I think I was able to drive that. One thing that is required is we must understand that research finally, while it is new knowledge, it gets published because that's the only way to validate that you have research. The impact of research has to be understood and articulated and measured somewhat. Now, the impact so far, we just graduated earlier, we were talking only about publishing, kahan publish kiya, kitna publish. We have graduated a little bit to impact, but the only one aspect of it, namely citations, which is only to the research community. And that's where exercises like research excellence, which Australia does, and similar exercise UK does, they have a multi-dimensional research impact assessment. So research is not just papers, but hey, look, great research with great citations is also great research. But research which leads to a startup is also great. Research that makes us understand how our society functions is great. So they have defined a whole bunch of impact things which are beyond citations, which we casually use. So I think we need to, and that's what I've been arguing, the only way to influence research to move in a certain direction without controlling the autonomy of the institutions, because we don't want governments telling us what to do and what not to do, publish or not publish, is to have a research assessment framework available to us. This is for our nation means this. How many jobs it created? Maybe, maybe not. I'm saying after discussion. Well, how many citations is always there. Papers and citations has to be always there. But maybe patents. How many new companies got created? How many? So we define our impact framework. And now we start measuring, how did IIIT do in this impact framework? We spend so much money in IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay. What is it that we got in impact? Then, of course, the next step, impact into dollars and rupees, let's forget about that. And we are not doing that. And if we leave it only to academics, then we'll use self-serving measures. So that research assessment framework, what is good research? And it has to be multidimensional, has to be an engagement between academics and the larger society which supports us in providing value while keeping the definition of research as creating new knowledge, not about creating new artifacts, which is engineering, not about creating new value by putting, which is innovation. Those are also important. We can tie it to research, but we must do that. That's where I think we have been missing. Longish answer to your question, but I hope it made sense.
Yeah, thanks. But I was trying to make the point that for a second tier institution, maybe even good engineering is a first step to graduate towards research. When you're at 0, you can't jump to 100.
Or maybe
I was trying to say that there has to be a path.
No, but maybe you don't want to graduate to research. research. Not every institution need to move towards research. In fact, I believe, some ought to, maybe, let's just take, for lack of any this thing, let's take NITs, out of 30, 40, maybe 5 ought to become research, but not everyone ought to become. And certainly below that, they ought to, in fact, I think we do a disservice. Every institute wants to do research. Hey, look, you position yourself as a teaching-oriented university. You'll have to do some research to do a good teaching. And that's the NEP as a very nice model. I really, really like it. Once after a long time, I'm excited about a policy. So, okay.
Anjana, can I make a little...
Okay, let's just finish the questions and you can come back.
No, it is with relation with Sudarshan's question. So that's
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
You see, the second tier, I'll give you a practical example. For our department, we have had a lot of students from, let's say, the Thadamal Chani College who came, did their MTechs or PhDs here. That lifted their student quality so much that lots of students there came and did their PhD and they have done very well. So part of the whole story is also building up the second, so-called the second tier, the teaching places, to such an extent that they provide us with excellent students for our PhDs.
Absolutely, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. That's why we keep providing them good teaching support and all that, teachers, etc. Absolutely, fully agree. Yeah.
Okay. Hitesh? Hitesh, good morning. Yeah.
Yes. Good evening, sir. I am a research scholar in IUR department. Sir, I want to ask a question related to the slide about the research culture in a university, the academic culture. So how is this COVID pandemic going to affect the overall academic culture and the research culture of a university, where I see like a lot of research scholars, some from my department also say that they don't want to come back because they are feeling happy at home with their families, and anyways the meeting with their guides and their supervisor is going on this Zoom calls and Google Meet, and they're all comfortable with the meetings. And also I see a lot of corporate people saying that in cities like Mumbai and Delhi, they take approximately 1.5 hours, 1.5 hours to and fro to go from their home to their companies. So it's a lot of time saving when they can just sit at their homes and do the meetings on Zoom call and work from home. So how is this pandemic going to overall affect the academic culture of institute when a lot of us don't want to come to a place, to our office and work with our colleagues and have discussions?
Thanks, Hitesh. You asked a much bigger question. The entire world is changing. I'm not smart enough, wise enough to how COVID will impact our work cultures. You're looking at your culture, but it's a much bigger thing, right? Faculty culture, work culture in company. I don't have, this is anybody's guess. But I want to, since you're a PhD scholar, I want to make a point to you. Don't worry about COVID, whatever changes will happen, however our culture transforms, your particular culture of PhD students, however it transforms. Focus on actually the culture of PhDs community that you have. Are you guys aspiring to do good quality problem solving? Are you guys aspiring to, as of now, while impact, etc., is very important when you progress. Right now, even are you aspiring to publish in good venues? So people, good people across the world take a note of your work. Right? That, as of now, if you focus on that, so I've changed the question because I can't answer your bigger question, but because I do advise some PhD students, guide them. I think look at those aspects. What can you do to do better, improve your high quality work, as well as linkages of the work? There's lots of stuff when you go on the internet, you find it. How do you build these micro cultures along with your friends? Okay, just focus on that. Bada cheez nahi ho raha, 10 of you start talking about a research every week. Coffee peene gaye, we discuss a research idea. Oh, no, some such thing. You guys will come up with it. So to solve that problem, a bada problem, I don't have an idea.
Sir, I'm asking because half of us now have stopped coming to labs.
Let it evolve. Let it evolve. Whatever happens will happen. If we always teach online, we will do that. Jo bhi banega, banega.
Thank you.
Okay, Ashish Pandey.
Thanks, Professor Jalote, for insightful talk. I'm a faculty in the School of Management, more towards social sciences. I want to understand what is the role of university in your perspective in creating the outlets for research, because you know the what kind of research is done has a lot to do with the what kind of outlet you aim at, like kind of disseminating your work. So,
so outlet you mean
journals or anything else?
Okay. So I view research as a global endeavor, and I see globally whatever outlets are there for publication per se, they are accessible to us. There may be some challenges in terms of cost, etc. sometimes, but those are, so as of now, for example, when I motivate PhD students or even us, we say, hey, let's try to look at the best journals, conferences that exist in the field that I'm working in. Let's, for the first time, that's the first step. There are more things to do. First step, let's try to actually publish good results in these venues. And I think there are global venues which are accessible to all of us, right? So, but there are other outlets, I would just call it outlets for impact, not just publication. Outlets for impact. How can you impact industry? How can you impact through a technology that you may have done? How can you impact society through something that you've done, right? Now, those are sort of bigger things, and I don't have good idea as to what platforms exist to make that happen. But those would be other things where we may have a weaker system than perhaps some other countries. At least publication-wise.
So, yeah. So can I ask a couple of other questions for you, Pankaj? One is, so you said size matters, and as you said, if you look at the top institutions, most of them are fairly large. But you went and sort of built a small focused institute. There is some kind of a contradiction of sorts. any post rationalization or explanation, or how you want to address that?
Okay, good point. But so first of all, we were given a charter.
I understand all. Yeah.
But just even there, keep in mind, I was very concerned that we are too narrow. So if you see out of the IIIT, we've actually found a way to add design, social sciences, math as first-class objects, without sort of going away from the scope that was given to us, because that's what the government was investing for, and so we were very conscious. So the scope was there, but we tried to push the scope as much as possible, and with the result, we have at least 5-6 different disciplines which are thriving as first-class objects with their own partly undergraduate program. But yes, there is a conflict.
Yeah, I thought you might want to mention your CS plus X programs.
Yeah, so that's how because IT was in our name. Okay, so we said let's do CS plus X. So actually we started CS, then ECE, then the 4 programs after that are CS plus Math, CS plus Bio, CS plus Social Sciences, CS plus Design. There's actually 2-3 other that we have conceived of, which are very nice programs. And so that's how we are pushing the scope without anybody from the government saying you were IT school, why are you doing this?
Yeah. So that's one. Another remark that I just wanted to make, I think Amit has also raised his arm, but just raised his hand rather. Just one other remark is that you point out to the fact that the government funding per faculty is abysmally low. But there is another analysis which looks at the top institutions in India and do some kind of a PPP, not exactly the standard PPP model, but with some suitable normalizations. The analysis of that seems to indicate that the funding per faculty in the major institutions is comparable to the better institutions in the US. So given that, any comments on?
Yes.
Yeah. Given that, what are your comments? I mean, this is
absolutely right.
So
if you look at the top 5 or so,
yeah,
not too much more than that, top 5 or so.
I think in this case it goes below 5, but so more than 5. But,
for example, I think there are 5 odd institutions which get a research grant of more than 100 crores a year. In engineering, maybe there is as many. So then let's say there are some institutions that are not really feeling the lack of funding.
Okay, Amit has a question. Maybe I'll ask.
All due apologies in case some sentiments got.
Okay, Amit has a question. Maybe if there is time, I'll ask another. So
yes,
we'll have to wind up by about 6:55. If there are more questions, I'll take them.
Yeah, so thank you for a very nice talk. I wish some of my colleagues were here to listen to you. My question is, one of the last things that you said about merging of the institutes to have, can you just elaborate on that idea? I mean, I'm just wondering how this is possible, especially with various campuses.
Okay. You see, so I mean, we have to learn. So don't say that I have a solution or per se, right? I have 2-3 people from other countries that I try to talk to find out how their merging work. So for example, in Australia, in one particular case, 8 or 10 entities were merged into one. But over a period of time, they actually rationalized, and the university now has 3 campuses. But the rest of the thing, so they consolidated in 2 or 3 campuses. And it's not only educational institutes, right? So for example, in France, they merged their écoles, they merged their universities, they merged their labs. So they merged some 8 or 10 institutions, this Paris, whatever that institute is, 8 or 10, including national labs, the technical institutes. In this case, they gave them a different piece of land in case of Paris. They said, okay, outside you get a big piece of land. But in case of Australia, they sort of did that. So I think the thing in India is going to be, if we are to, it has to be case by case, city by city. You look at Pune, look at Bombay, whatever. You say, let's find out, you know, if there are 2 institutes across the city, possibly we don't want to do that. But hey, look, if there are 3-4 within 8-10 kilometers with public transport, and remember, then you can do the places that I looked at, they created their busing network. So there is a bus going around and round and round, taking people between these 3 campuses, right? So you can think of it, but it will have to be evolved. There can't be a general solution. It will have to be city by city. You'll have to look at what labs exist, what med schools exist, what law schools exist, which ones can you merge with engineering and social sciences and law and so on and so forth, which are possibly in the same place. Some, you know, I have some thoughts for Delhi, but I'm sure you would have some thoughts in Mumbai.
Okay, there is one question in the chat box. Arnab Das, if you are on, you can ask, I think. Instead of asking it, maybe, I don't know if you're still there. Is Arnab Das still there? Okay, I'll just read it out. I'm not sure. Okay. Insights on how research can be excelled through international collaboration and considering pandemic effect, is virtual learning sustainable to enhance research partnership and collaborative development? I'm not sure I fully understand this, but
let's just say the good side of pandemic is that we now know how to work better virtually. So that can be that actually for India, for Indian researchers and so on, is going to be a boon, because we often have shortages of money to travel. Now, globally, everyone is used to, so we can, you know, you still need face-to-face, but if one-to-one was, one face-to-face meeting and one online was needed, now perhaps for every one face-to-face meeting, we can do 10 online. So I think we can, the lesser resources for travel that we have, we can leverage it more for our collaborations internationally. Everybody now accepts it. So that may be a good one.
One other question, loss of identity is the major issue with mergers. How does one address that?
Of course, you create a new identity. Of course, you create a new identity. But it's a nice question. Somebody has pointed out, and that is where I think it's going to be so much challenging.
So, for example, isn't Carnegie Mellon actually two institutions merged into one? Just as if I remember right, I think there were two separate. I believe that and Case Western are the two examples that I know for sure, which were created via mergers.
So US may be more organic growth, because it has a much longer history of universities and this thing. But I think the point whoever has raised it, it's very nice. It's you have 10 institutions, chota. Everything has a director or a vice chancellor. Now, of course, there is interest in, if I'm the director, I want to maintain this particular, my position, my this, that. So somebody has to work it out. But at the same time, please keep in mind, there is an acute shortage of good academic leadership. Let's not pussyfoot this. We have a lot of academic leaders leading our universities, which are basically fairly average. We don't have the kind of academic leadership that is needed for 1,000+ institutions. But we may have 200-300 good leaders. We may even provide them more opportunities. So actually, we completely underestimate the need for leadership that exists and the lack of leadership that exists, right? We talk about it, but there's acute shortage of it. Hopefully, if we merge, then we will have some of these leaders who can take these bigger institutions to greater heights.
Any more questions? I don't see any more raised. Oh, there is one more. Soumya.
I just raised
there are no. What is this? Okay, carry on.
So, Professor Jalote,
carry on quickly. You're the last questioner. This is the last question. I think we have to wind up soon.
Okay. I mean, if no one has raised their hand,
go ahead.
So, Professor Jalote, I mean, one of the things is that in India, the universities are broken up into institutions, etc., to create smaller, nimbler structures which can adapt to the evolving world, so to speak. Now, when we are talking about mergers and making them bigger, does that go against the philosophy of making them nimbler and faster adapting to the changing world of research scenarios and stuff like that? I mean, there is obviously a contradiction over there, and how do we resolve that issue is the question.
If I can add to that, I think in India, larger institutions have they really done well? I mean, that's historically, we've had failures. The larger the institution, the harder it is for this institution to do well. So yeah, maybe you can.
Let me start with the second point. I think, say consciously, unconsciously, whatever, we stuck to the line as a country, smaller institutions, because perhaps we intuitively felt lack of capability to do big institutions, right? And I also, for a long time, thought that we don't have the maturity and these things of managing large institutions. But I think what has changed in the Indian scheme of things is really the IT industry and various other industries have demonstrated that in India, with us Indians, we can run professional organizations at large scale. I think if you look at before 2000, even companies were small. Only public sector, railways, etc. But now we look at large corporations which are running fine facilities and so on. So maybe 25 years ago, I wouldn't say let's go large, because small personalized management is possible to do. Large system-based management we were not good at. But now, A, technology is that. B, I think there is enough happening in the country that has given us confidence to do scale. That's why we are now, and scale is useful. So that's why I think it's the right time. The second point that Soumya was saying, or it's a better time to try. And by the way, I say experiment with it. We don't adopt any model. Don't say, let's go scale now. At least we ought to experiment with it. We've experimented with the chota things for a long time. Let's experiment with merging, a few of them and see how it works out. And so, I think that is no contradiction. Large systems, they provide some central guidelines. So you don't have to always, if you want to participate, you want to try a new program, you don't have to go to multiple institutions, multiple senates, multiple boards to get an agreement. So that way you have at the top level certain ease of things, and yet you want smaller things to move further. So there isn't a contradiction. So you want some top level things to be simplified. That's where the largest time goes, right? Senate, board, things will take long time. That is simplified. Now department can move very quickly.
So what we are talking essentially is divestiture of responsibilities.
Yes, you work out models. You work out models whereby only few things filter up and more things go down, and then more things are left at that level. Right. And we'll have to learn from these big universities across the world. So every country has big universities. I mean, well-known country. Yeah. We learn. Now we are capable of. We have confidence in capability. I don't think we ought to be afraid of size now.
Anyway. I think there are no more questions. So, yeah, it's my pleasure. I don't, if there are no more questions, I think we can end the session. Thanks very much, Pankaj, for a lively, almost an hour plus. And my apologies once again for the delay. I sort of lost track of time. And thanks everyone for contributing to the discussion and coming in and listening to Pankaj. Yeah, thanks everybody. I think with that I'll stop recording and we will end the session.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Recording. I was able to finally record it. Pankaj, yeah, I was able to record it.
Great.
I probably lost about 5 minutes in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Okay, there was some confusion from my side. Okay.
Great.
So thank you very much, Pankaj.
Thanks everyone for joining, taking your evening off, the evening for this. All right, bye.
Thanks.
But